This is TWiT.
And now it is time for a call for help. Pre-recorded because they don't have power in British Columbia. I don't know.
Too much Bitcoin mining.
Too much Bitcoin mining. From Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, Canada, Trent.
Hi, Leo. I'm Father Robert. I just bought a new router a couple of months ago. They offered a paid IoT security feature, which they gave for free for a couple of months. Rather suspiciously, about 2 days after the subscription ran out, I got an email from my provider saying that there was some weird activity on my network, and they said it was probably the Mirai, IoT Mirai. Now, I'm not against paying for IoT security, but I was kind of keen to figure out where the hole was and to move to patch it. But the best advice that anybody ever gives is to turn everything off and turn everything back on, change your passwords, and cross your fingers. I don't have a lot of IoT devices, a Nest, some Hue lights, an Echo, and then modems and routers. But I was wondering if there's any way to do the network analysis on these things to find out what's insecure. Is there something like a little snitch for network traffic for these IoT devices?
Now, the first thing I'd have to say is if you go back a couple of weeks on New Screensavers, I showed off using just a port scanner. Mm-hmm. So you use Nmap, which is a free piece of software that runs on Linux, OS 10, Windows, whatever, and it will look through your entire network or even outside networks, although be careful about doing that because it looks like an attack, and it looks for open ports. Is there anything that's vulnerable? Is there any port that's open that could potentially be attacked? But that's just the start of it. He's specifically asking about Mirai. There's a couple of things that he could use here.
We should mention Mirai was the botnet that almost took down the internet, took down Dyn, a big DNS server, and it worked because it took advantage of unpatched IoT or unpatchable IoT devices, cameras and routers, interestingly enough, and would live on that router or that camera. It did not survive reboot.
No.
Which is interesting. But on the other hand, if you got it the first time, you're probably going to get it again because they just kept sending it out over the internet.
They were seeing something. During that first round, they had devices that would drop off the botnet because they were rebooted, but then they would come back up a couple of minutes later because when they were reconnected, they were almost instantly reinfected. Because Mirai went through, its main vector of attack was the fact that a lot of these devices have default usernames and passwords that are hard-coded.
Not good.
Yeah. And that's a really, really good way to make sure that you get owned.
So now I'm curious why he got this the minute he stopped paying this fee to protect himself. I hope that this company did not infect him.
Well, it may be less nefarious than that. It could just be that once he's no longer using the free trial, it's not doing a thorough scan of his internal network. It's just doing a basic scan, and it's going, oh, this device isn't responding, therefore it might be infected with Mirai. Well, yeah, it might be infected by Mirai, but it also just might have a firewall.
But wait, he said that the email came from his ISP.
Right.
His ISP saw Mirai. So it does feel like that router was protecting him. And, you know, Mirai is out there. If you have a Mirai infectable device, isn't it going to get infected? Yeah. So maybe he did, in fact, have a vulnerable device, a camera he got from a kind of no-name Chinese company or a cheap router. It wasn't a router, obviously, because he had a secure router on there. And maybe it just didn't get infected because he'd been protected all this time. And all of a sudden, you stop paying for the protection, it's going to get infected. That's the way it works with Mirai. So what can he do? I mean, that's one way is to look for open ports. Nmap. Now, does Nmap know about Mirai? Will it look for the...
No. So Nmap isn't actually looking for vulnerabilities. It's literally just a port scanner.
What ports are open?
What ports are open, what services are available.
It will know sometimes if it's a canonical port what that port normally does.
Precisely.
So it can identify that. But it doesn't know about what port the Mirai net's looking for.
Right. Mirai might be using 1849. And do you know what a port 1849 normally serves?
No, what?
Anything. That's the idea behind ports. I mean, you can have anything running on any port. That's what makes it so difficult.
Right. And I'm sure it moves around too.
Precisely.
If, you know, I mean, you're not going to use the same port all the time. So the other way that he should think about this is protecting his IoT devices from the outside world. Don't buy, you know, and Stacey Higginbotham had it in a nutshell on Twig this week. She does the Stacey on IoT podcast. She writes a newsletter about IoT. She says, I will not buy an IoT device that isn't over-the-air firmware upgradable. Period. Period. I guarantee you that camera that he's getting infected is not. So make sure it is, and that the company stands behind it, and is going to stay in business, and is going to upgrade it. That means you're buying from a big company, not a no-name company. You might pay a little bit more for your cameras and your routers and all that stuff, but it's really important it be over-the-air firmware upgradable. And then Steve Gibson talks about what to do to protect yourself and your IoT devices. Now, this is hardcore. You know what I'm talking about.
The three dumb routers.
The three dumb routers where you make a triangle. I think more and more routers are starting to come with an internet-only
Right, they're coming with
network.
VLANs enabled. We actually did an episode of Know How where we showed off how to create a 3-dumb router setup. And it,
It's worth watching.
It is worth watching. So you have one router that's your premise. So that's where the internet comes into. And then you use 2 other routers to create sort of the untrusted and the trusted side.
Okay, you can't just use 2 routers to do this. You need a third router.
You need a third router because, well, the thing is you want nothing behind that first router except the other 2 routers.
See, the problem is these IoT devices basically become a gateway
Yes.
into your home network from bad guys.
Right.
And so if they're on your home network, they are going to give bad guys access to it. So they need to be completely on a VLAN or isolated. It is enough, though, to create a VLAN.
It is enough. A VLAN is not a security feature, but it's a management feature. But for most
Traffic
cases,
doesn't usually bridge over from one VLAN to another.
Precisely.
Yeah.
We have moved from what we used to call the perimeter defense. So perimeter defense really died about 10 years ago.
Because it didn't work, keeping everybody from coming in at all.
All the bad guys stay outside. Now you just assume the bad guys have
They're
gotten
gonna get
in.
in. Yeah.
So you try to segment your network so that if something gets on, your cameras, your doorbell, whatever it might be, it doesn't affect the things that actually matter. Your NAS, your laptop, your desktop, your phone.
So you have a long list, unfortunately, of things you want a router to do. This is one more, to have the router support either they may call it VLANing. Edge Router X, for instance, from Ubiquiti, says you can make VLANs. It's a nice $50 router, has 4 ports, PoE as well. But you would need a Wi-Fi router, but that's fine. You have the Wi-Fi on one port, VLAN away from another Wi-Fi access point that is for your... I'll tell you, the only problem with doing this, the reason I haven't done this, is you can't control those devices.
Yes.
Because my phone is on the secure internal network, but all the Alexa and the cameras and everything, they're on the secure other network, and they don't talk to each other for good reason, so I can't control them.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, what happens on my network, I don't use the 3-dumb router setup. I have a enterprise level switch that creates a new VLAN for every device that's on the network.
Yeah.
And then it's decided what privileges those
So
devices should have.
you could have rules that say, oh, if you're seeing Sonos traffic, go ahead and route that in,
Precisely.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's another, I also use a Wi-Fi system from Plume, and I imagine more and more of these mesh systems will do this. The Eero does not yet, to my knowledge, but the Plume allows you to set up, almost everybody allows you to set up a regular network and a guest network. That's not enough. A guest network communicates with the other network, but Plume has a third network called an internet-only network that allows a guest coming into the home, you give him this password, and he can do one thing, out. He can't go in. He can only go out to the internet. That, I think, would provide enough security. It's effectively a VLAN. So you would then give your IoT devices access to this internet-only network, and they wouldn't have access to your internal network. I haven't tried it to see if I'd have access to them, but my guess is I wouldn't. This is the Plume, and you could see, I think if you look at, go back. You see it says home, on the home pass, home, guests, and internet only. And I suspect that would do the same thing as a 3-dumb router setup. So I hope more and more routers do this. That should be a checklist when you buy a router next time.
Yeah.
That would help, right? Yeah. So I guess, he said I'm running Little Snitch. That's good, but the problem with Little Snitch is it watches outbound traffic from your Macintosh. It doesn't watch outbound traffic from your IoT device.
I've actually got something for that.
What's that?
So this is an old laptop, and actually, if you go to this is a super easy way to make sure that you're not infected by Mirai. It's a service provided by Encapsula, and yes.
Oh, it actually scans for it.
It actually scans your network, so it's a free utility. It kind of works. I mean, it'll give you the basics. It's not super descriptive, but at least it will give you a warm and fuzzy. And by the way, that IP address, that's not the TWiT IP address. That's a burner phone, so go ahead and attack it if you want to. But that's not what I want to show off. What I want to show off is another free tool. Last time I showed Nmap. This time I want to show
Nmap. Everybody should use
Wireshark.
Oh, those two together. You got the
golden.
toolkit.
You're golden.
Yeah, you're really
so
got it.
Wireshark just looks at the wire. It watches the wire and it reports what it finds. So what I'm seeing here, this is some sample traffic that I've gotten. I've got this one device on my network, 10.0.2.15. Look how many requests it's making to so many different hosts. On this is malware traffic. This is what malware traffic looks like. You've got one device that just keeps sweeping the range, sending packets, and I'm seeing a lot of ACK, not that much SYN. This is the kind of pattern that you would find from something like a Mirai or something that's trying to replicate. It's looking for open ports. It's looking for open services. It's looking for those devices that haven't been secured, and then it will report back via its probably IRC botnet command network and say, what do you want me to do? But to make this work, though, Leo, you need something called a tap, or that works like a tap. I've got a couple of devices.
This is a physical device.
This is a physical device. Because Little Snitch, as you mentioned, will only work on that device.
Yeah.
Right. What I can do if I tap, I can actually tap an entire segment of the network. So all of these are enterprise class. So these, you probably aren't going to get these. These are net optics. These will run you like, 1,000.
So how does
each.
this work? You put this on your network.
Right. So you got the cable coming in and going out.
Yeah.
And then I can tap either the inbound, the outbound, or the aggregated traffic. So I can see everything that passes on the line. But this doesn't actually, it's not part of the network. It doesn't have an IP address. It doesn't look like a device. It's just a spy. This does the same thing if you've got a fiber network. So
Okay,
if
you've got Fiber Connect.
So the whole idea is being able to see the traffic without participating in the traffic. This is a more affordable one. You can get these for about $200. This is a Shark Tac. This is the one I like. It's a
200,
gigabit.
okay.
Right. It's a gigabit aggregated tap. You can also get a 10100 for about $70.
So it's basically a pass-through, right?
But that one port at the bottom gives you everything that's passing through that wire. So if I have this between my main switch and my router, it will capture every communication between any device on my network and the internet.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So this is what you'd want to put Wireshark and Nmap on, the device connected to that tap.
Precisely.
Because then they're going to see everything that's happening.
And I mean, I've got Nmap, I've got Wireshark running on an 11-year-old laptop
Doesn't
here.
need much. Yeah.
You don't need much. You need a lot of space because it is capturing all the traffic. But it's a nice, easy way to make sure that nothing on your network is doing something it shouldn't be doing. In fact, every time I get a new device, I stick a tap on it and I watch it for a week.
Wow, that's
just to see what it's sending. If I'm not doing anything with it and it's sending packets out into the internet, I'm worried.
And you can trust this.
Oh yeah.
This isn't going to get hacked?
No.
Okay. This is from Midbit Tech, MIDBITTECH.com.
Right. And if you want a 10100 tap, you can actually make your own for about 45 cents in parts.
Can't be that hard.
It's not that hard. A gigabit tap, yes. 10100, no.
Okay. And you, truthfully, you probably don't have gigabit networking in your house.
Well, I mean, you
You have
might.
Cat 6E or something? Or what?
I would use the gigabit if you're trying to look at segments in your network because you might have gigabit.
You might have.
But if you're
we
just
do, certainly.
if you're just looking at what's going out to the internet,
10 gig. Yeah.
10100 will work because most of you don't have 100 megabit connections.
You don't need to go faster than that. Wow. Well, that's a great question, Trent. I'm sorry you got bit by Mirai.
Ouch.
And I'm glad that you called and asked because I think we've given you some really good ideas. A lot of pen testing distributions have Wireshark and Nmap. Kali Linux, for instance, it comes with a whole host of tools, including Wireshark and Nmap, so that you can then use all of those, put it on take an old machine, put Kali Linux on it, and it's really used by pen testers to go through the network and see what's going on. Pen stands for penetration. You're testing to see if you've been penetrated. Thank you, Father Robert. Usually people know, but if you don't know, then you use Kali.